what narcissistic men in particular who have a lack of sense of self and they struggle with their identity, they're very broken men. Their number one most powerful tool to keep women in poverty and to keep women in aggressive energy, which repels favor, meaning, in order for a woman to suffer so greatly in this life, she has to forfeit her natural nature. Okay. And this doesn't have anything to do with even your sexuality or preference or anything. If you if you abandon your nature as a woman, you automatically repel a lot of your natural favor in this life because you're so guarded, you're so aggressive, you're so defensive, you're offensive, you are always like blocking, right, as a way of protection. So what men who struggle with their own sense of self and masculine identity, like maybe they struggle with being a man, I'm really serious about that, if they struggled with their identity as a man for whatever their traumatic reason is, we're not psychiatrists, we're not here to figure out why they are so damaged and so broken. But whatever it is, it's like they inflict pain on the women that they envy because of your sense of self. So if you are jolly, meaning happy, if you are a joyful woman, a woman who's charming, a woman who's graceful, elegant, classy, happy, innocent, feminine, soft, flirty, anything lighthearted, they envy that because they're not, these people are very intelligent. They have a dark intelligence because of the spirit that they carry. It's a spirit on them, it's a principality on them. And so that spirit, it sits back and it observes the psychology of people, specifically women in particular, if they have a mother wound or if they resent their mother strongly for whatever, where either whatever she has been to them or whatever she has allowed to happen to them. So a lot of these men who suffer with mother wounds, they resent feminine women in particular who have embraced their nature, because a lot of these men, they sit back and they watch and they feel like, I've talked about this before, like life bends to your will. And when you are in this innocent, like kind of whimsical, energy, they perceive that to be naivety to a degree, but they also perceive that to be a cheat code to your life. And they feel like because you may be flirty, charming, innocent, feminine, soft, just kind of lighthearted, that things just come to you easily. And so, because of that resentment for their own mother, or maybe their mother was a player or something, like maybe she played men or something, who knows? But they sat back and they watch and they feel like maybe they've gotten the unfair end of the stick because they are a man. And as a man, especially if they did not have a father in their life to guide them on what manhood is, many of these men, they feel like they got the short end of the stick because now they have to carry more of the weight of life, right? More labor, and they're expected to be more responsible than a woman. And so some of these men have a distorted sense of self, and they envy your nature as a woman. So they try to compete with your nature. And so what they try to do is, if they see a woman who's confident, despite maybe her many challenges, despite maybe where you come from, or even your circumstances, your resilience and your ability to still maintain your womanhood and femininity in spite of maybe the trials and tribulations you face, they are angry at that, because why, even with all of these challenges, aren't you damaged beyond repair? Right? And so what they do is they they find a way to make themselves a knight in shiny armor. But the way in which they have to do that is they have to find out your deficit. Is there anything that you're not getting, even though it looks like you do have it all, or you have adapted to life well in spite of the things that you don't have? So they try to anchor themselves in your life very quickly to find out your deficits. Where are your voids? Where are you empty? What may be a hardship for you? Are there any unresolved traumas? And they try to find that out so that they can pretend like they're going to fill that empty spot in your life. And the overall goal for these men is to create weight because they feel like life too easy for you. Okay. So because it looks like you're just too adaptable and you can just kind of, overcome adversities at will, they have to force more trauma, force more weight, force more hardships. And the way they do that is through psychological and emotional trauma, because you can't see that type of abuse. And it's slow and it builds and it can unravel a woman to the point of no return. If you are a woman who are specifically a generational curse breaker in your family, specifically a woman who has, you're very rare, right? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you are very, very gifted. Many of these men, like the warlock and the narcissist in particular, they seek out these women in particular because these women have the gift of impact and influence. These women have been portaled here on this planet to majorly shift the dynamics on this planet and to maintain balance and harmony. That's your job as a gifted woman. That is your job. That's your mission in this life. You have been anointed by the Creator to come here to maintain the balance of life by shifting the imbalance that has been created by human beings, but we can say like patriarchy, misogynistic, distorted men, so to speak. That's not a gender divide. That's the truth. And so the overall goal of these men is to usurp your power at your expense, but for their gain. And so they seek you out, you in particular, they seek you out because, as I said, your ability to adapt is one that is almost like a conundrum. It's a code that needs to be cracked because they don't understand it. Okay. How are you doing this with all of the trials, with all the tribulations, with coming from poverty, with coming from, certain women like this come from like very terrible families, orphans, foster homes, narcissistic family systems, like I said, extreme poverty, just black sheeps types of women. But most of these women are very, very beautiful, physically and spiritually, emotionally and mentally. They're rare breeds in their environment, and everybody can see it. Everybody can. But unfortunately, just due to your natural, like the being born into that type of default, it makes it hard for you to come out of that because you don't get any assistance. Where you outshine or where you are outranked in that environment, you're not going to get any assistance because people are fearful, okay, of what you're going to be or what you have the potential to be. So that's why for extremely gifted women with these types of rare anointings, they don't get any assistance from anybody, women or men, in these environments, okay? Because it's a spiritual thing. It's not nothing physical. It's nothing against you personally, but it's a spiritual principality that governs that environment. So most of these women, they are destined for success. That is true. They are destined for greatness. They are destined to be in a position most of the time of power, of authority of some sort, and of impact of some sort. But before you can get there, you most people in this society, you need connections, or you need someone to guide you, like a mentor or something, so to speak. But if you don't have the resources and you don't know the people, then it's almost as if you are surrounded, like you're behind enemy lines, so to speak. So it's like your soul, your body is free, but your soul is self-incarcerated because of the circumstance that you find yourself in. But the thing about the soul is that the soul craves, it's gonna always crave what is naturally innately designed to come here for. So even though the body is limited, the soul is never going to be satisfied until it breaks free. And so for a lot of these women, we are initially in these environments where we're like born behind enemy lines. You don't really understand these things until, life hands you a swift kick in the ass. I'm just being honest. And this will go on for most of, I would say, probably the first quarter of your life. Most women like this deal with the most type of pain, trauma, trials, and tribulations, excruciating pain between birth to about 25 to 30 years old, some. And then some women who have been destined for this major missions in life, they'll go through these things from like birth to almost like 50 years of age. Like 2/4 of your life get caught up in warfare. And it's nothing that you did. It's just the way this game of life had been set up for you. And the overall goal is endurance, tenacity, resilience, and so on and so forth. And we can get to that a little later. But needless to say, you cannot thrive in it at all. But needless to say, these men, they try to find you at a C level when you're in that environment. They try to catch you, and these are major principalities. They're not people. These are not men like a man, like an actual physical man. It's a spirit inside the man. But what he reflects back to you is toxic femininity. He does not reflect healthy masculinity. He is a toxic feminine principality in male form. And that familiar spirit in him, you will notice that in your mother, if she's narcissistic, your aunts, if they're narcissistic, your sisters, your whoever. The women, if you come from a narcissistic family system, these are for my quote unquote black sheep women, highly anointed women, highly prophetic women, healers, empaths, whatever you would like to call yourself. Those women, you were usually surrounded by narcissistic, quote unquote, male identified women. And a lot of those women, unfortunately, have been abused to no end by men. And a lot of those women have succumbed to trying to please men at their own expense. And if it was extreme poverty that you guys face, you will notice that there is a link between narcissistic, abusive men and poverty in the women in your family. Take a moment, step back, and review. Take a moment, step back, and review. What was the life of your mother like? What was the life of your aunts like? What was the life of your female cousins like? What was the life of your grandmother like? What was their lives like as it relates to men and their finances and their career path and their life purpose? Go look. Did any of those women, these are for my rare women, did any of those women have any real successes on their own merit outside of men? Did they? And if they didn't, what was their life like with men in it? What kind of caliber of men did they entertain? And based on the caliber of men that they entertain, how did their lives turn out? Today. Now, some women, fortunate, maybe you're fortunate. Maybe you have successful women all around you. They're thriving. They're doing well. Life has been favorable to them. But these are for generational curse breaking women. If you go look at the relationship between a lot of the females in your family and you look at the dynamics between the men that they've entertained, I can guarantee you it was abuse and then poverty. That's the pipeline. Yes, Jude, stress increases the cortisol levels, which decreases the productivity, decreases the creative intelligence, decreases your focus and attention, and it decreases your ability to co-create with God Almighty, and it decreases the manifestation rate in your life in terms of a quality experience. And before you were able to catch it, right? Because a lot of us now we are in the age of awakening. So we know now, and many of us are recovering, and God is restoring us back to balance so that we can live in our purpose and live according to our mission in life. Before that came, that principality damn near took you out. Its overall goal was to stress you out to death. Before you found purpose, you were never supposed to, as a woman, come into purpose. You were never supposed to know that you could be a woman in your nature and be authoritative and be a leader and be impactful and still be loved. You are still lovable without forfeiting your nature. But before you could have all of that, and before you could tap into all of those multi gifts, a major principality in the form of a relationship, because that's the closest thing that can get to you to break you. Not even just your mind, your soul. A false partner, a counterfeit relationship can break a woman to the point of no return. And I mean that. Many women have been driven mad. They never got their minds back. Many women have had their souls crushed. They never recovered. Yes, their lights have been dimmed and they're still in the dark. Many women have had their beauty drained, where they are 40, 50 years old. They look like they're 90, 100 years of age, unfortunately. And they never recovered. But somehow you, out of all of these women that you have been able to observe this pattern from, you step back and you caught it before this thing could completely destroy your mind, your soul, because it did try to do that. And that was the overall goal, to crush you beyond repair. But God, oh my God, we talk about God. Many people say they believe in God and some people don't. But this omnipresent, powerful force has a way of making a woman of purpose appear to be possum, to basically make you look like, yeah, you're out for the count. It is for your protection. And if you are in that season, just please hold tight. Don't let go. Okay? God sometimes will make a woman who is going to be extremely powerful and impactful appear to be out for the count in life, especially if there has been a major principality on the lineage of the mitochondrial DNA in your family, which is your matriarchal line, which is the women. That is your great-grandmother, your grandmother, your mother, her sisters, and everyone else that's connected to the mitochondrial DNA. Okay? And so it is for your protection for a particular season, to strip you of everything that you once knew, the conditioning of your mind, the lifestyle you were living, the treatment you accepted, the standards that you had accepted, everything that you once knew, the identity that was not yours, that someone probably cast it onto you, whether it was your mother or the women in your family or your father or the environment itself or just societal's influences. Doesn't matter. It wasn't you. So sometimes God will allow a tower to just fall, an entire faulty foundation to just collapse underneath you, and you're thinking that you are being destroyed, but the entire time you are being crucified to be renewed. You will have your day of rejuvenation where you will be restored back to balance, but it will not be the version of you that you once knew, because that version was manufactured in that environment, a place that you there's a part of me that feel like you didn't belong there, but also there was a part of me that felt like you had to be there for you to be refined and get a complete understanding of what this realm of existence is. Because if you did not go through all of that, it's like just insurmountable amounts of pain, you wouldn't understand the higher meaning of this realm and what you are supposed to do here, and your ability to alchemize and to transmute and transcend beyond even your limited being, because the human being and the mortal being is limited. However, the soul has many possibilities. The soul can override the human system. Do you know that you can believe in something so greatly that you can heal your body from sickness if you believe in it great enough? So the soul can override the conditioning of the computer that we know as the human being. It can. And it can super exceed whatever circumstance or manufactured, hardships people have put on you. Faith is just that strong if you believe enough, right? But before your spiritual awakening, for a generational curse breaking woman, these men, these warlock like men, they come on your path, and a lot of them you can overrun them until you meet one. Okay? Till you meet this one. The one that you meet is so dark, but on the outside they appear very unassuming. These are your nice guys. These are the ones I put in quotation. These are your nice guys. These are the guys that are, you know how they say you should have chose better? It's those on average. You should have chose better type. On paper, they appear to be appealing. They don't necessarily look or appear to be the stereotype or anything, but your soul and your body knows better. When you first meet these kind of men, you can pick up on something that you cannot put your finger on. Something's not right here, but they say all the right things. They mirror you to the T. They have studied women. Maybe they grew up in a household full of women. Okay, maybe they've been around women their whole life, but they've studied women to the T enough to know how to mirror you and to impress you when you are still shallow and superficial. This is before the generational curse breaker woman gets her spiritual awakening. Okay, she's still different, but she's so conditioned. She plays herself small, so she hides even from herself. There's a part of her that hides even from herself, right? She's been conditioned to have chronic self-doubt. So in an effort to blend in the limited environment where she is, she hides from herself. And so what she does is she attracts these types of men who just mirror her. And because she does not understand who she is yet, and she hasn't been introduced to the higher version of herself, she still struggles with self-love issues, self-worth, and there's some level of desperation and a need to be needed and a need to be wanted because of some maybe unhealed issues of our own. Maybe some mother wound, maybe some father wounds, unhealed childhood trauma. Usually when you meet a very dark principality who comes in the form of a man that's going to be the catalyst to your growth, to like crack you wide open, like this type of principality, usually you have some type of mother wound or father wound. Now, I feel like women who come from narcissistic family systems, there was a lot to do with your mother. And the unhealed, resolved issues with your mother shows up in the form of a man because it's not a person, it's a familiar spirit. And that familiar spirit, it shows up as toxic femininity in the form of a man. And people think that everything is gender. It's not gender. It's energy and spirit. It's not gender. Toxic femininity can be in the form of a man or a woman. Toxic masculinity can be in the form of a man or a woman because it's highs and lows and frequencies of life. It's not a person like a gender, so to speak. It is an energy, a frequency, a spirit. And so whatever unresolved issues you may have had, and men face this too with like women who may be toxic masculine, who will challenge them in the form of a woman, they will face that too on their path, like men who are anointed. But for the sake of this conversation, we're talking about women. You meet these men, but they challenge you like a woman. And if you have noticed, if you survive this type of principality, which is a familiar spirit that has broken many women in your family before they ever came to the realization to be able to transcend this type of spiritual warfare, if you will notice, a lot of those men, when you were in your darkest period of your life, trying to get an understanding of what type of thing you're facing, right? When you deal with narcissistic abuse, especially like post-separation narcissistic abuse, because I find that most of the issue doesn't even come in the relationship. It comes when you are on the cusp of leaving that relationship, or if you're out of that relationship. The warfare gets heavy post-separation. Many people don't talk about the narcissistic abuse or spiritual warfare of post-separate. When you make a decision to walk away from this type of principality, it literally rages war on your mind, your body, your soul, your finances, your spirit, your purpose, your identity. It wreaks havoc. And while you were in the dark trying to figure out what in the hell kind of person would try to do this to me, after you've been so loving and so kind and so lenient and so compromising and so accommodating and so understanding, what is this? Because it's not who is this, it's what is this? Because it does seek to break you at your core level as a woman and as a person. And it's almost as if it knows you. When you deal with this type of principality, it's almost as if it knows you. This is how you know it's a spiritual thing that is after something, right? This is before God reveals the thing that is after. But you'll look at the person and you're like, there's no way that this person is intelligent enough to strike me in key areas like this. There's no way. That's how you know it's not a person, because the person isn't. If you've been with a narcissistic person, you know how they are. They act like adolescents. They throw tantrums. They're very unstable in very many ways. But the dark intelligence of the warfare that they rage against you as a gifted woman, it's a spirit. It has to be. It can't be a person, because that person, you've been with them, you know how limited they are in their mortal or human being. And the way, as I said, they strike you, it goes all the way back to childhood. They'll strike you in areas of your soul that the female child can feel. That's how you know it's not a person and it's not a man. It's a familiar principality that had been assigned to your bloodline as a woman, the mitochondrial bloodline of your DNA. And it came in the form of a man, because in this society, you are conditioned to want, quote unquote, love, right? External love. The white picket fence, the wife, the mother, the dog, that whole thing. This is the picture that gets painted to you throughout all of your fantasy books and all of that stuff. So this is what you are programmed to yearn for, even if that's not your nature. Many of us who are gifted women, we can have a guy or not have a guy. If you know what I mean? Like, okay, it's no real gift or anything. Is it something that you could take or leave? Yes. It's nice to have a companion, but if you don't, you won't pass away. As a matter of fact, I find generational curse breaking women being able to thrive better when they're not in romantic relationships, because it has a tendency to slow them down, right? Unless he's an extraordinary man. However, you have been conditioned to have desires that are not your own. And so because of that, before you awaken to who you were in terms of your higher version of yourself, you meet these principalities. And the reason why it comes in the form of a man is because it would be so devastating to your soul. When he strikes you, you're going to least expect it, because you consensually, through agreement, gave of yourself to this person when you accepted the quote unquote romantic relationship. So that is a bind, that is a covenant, that is an agreement. So it's almost as if you agree to the suffering of yourself until you go back to go forward. So what God allows to happen is he allows this type of being, warlock, narcissistic men, to break you and to make it appear as though you are out for the count. Now, once you appear that way, he covers you, right? So now this principality can look away. Okay, I've done the damage. It's done. But then you receive the instruction from God to isolate. Like that's the original obedient or prophetic instruction. Isolation, right? Remove yourself from everything that you know. In order to break a familiar bind, in order to break a familiar covenant off of your bloodline as a curse breaking woman, you have to remove yourself from everything that you once knew. You cannot break a familiar spirit in a familiar environment. Everything that is familiar is no more. It has to be stripped away from you entirely. Mind, body, spirit, and soul, everything. You cannot conquer a familiar spirit in a familiar space. Everything you once knew is no more. The family you were born into, you will find out that it's not your family, it's spirit. The exes, all of that, those were not real relationships. All of your experiences up until the point of your spiritual awakening, it was all just a part of a construct, a systematic, like computer-like systematic thing. It wasn't what was designed for you in this lifetime. Okay, so it was just a program you were born into, and you'll realize, you'll look around, because at first you think you're going through some things like, okay, I'm out of my mind, right? Because the soul can compartmentalize and process, but in logic and in practicality, it makes no sense. But what you're going through is so much more bigger than what you have been conditioned to understand. So that's why God reveals these things in increments. You're thinking that God is punishing you because he's not giving you whatever it is that you want materially or physically, but he's stripping you of the program that you accepted. He cannot build anything or even give you anything because you cannot truly accept whatever it is that you're designed or meant to have in this life as that version of yourself. Because that version accepted people, places, and things that were not good for you. That version of you was sick. That version of you had low standards or no standards. That version of you longed for completion and satisfaction outside of self. So he cannot give you anything that you're meant to have as that version. Let me see who this is, because if you about to come in here with some gender mess, I'm getting you out of here. But this is not about being single or not being single. Let me keep an eye on this chat. I'm so happy for you, Drika, that you're still here. But that version of you, it could not handle what you're meant to have in this life. So God could not put that type of responsibility or that type of gifting in the hands of someone that unfortunately was still a baby in consciousness. I do not know. Well, I do know Empress just why they insert themselves, but I'm just gonna keep an eye as I speak. Okay. Um, let's just remain focused as God continues to reveal. But a lot of this is God having to strip you. So he will allow what appears to be destructive to the physical comfort so that he can rebuild you to prepare you for the spiritual comfort. And before that comes, let's see, give all your words and stress to God and let him deal with it. That is very true. So thank you so much for your input. I had to get him out of here. He didn't do anything necessarily wrong, but that's not what this topic is about. He can come back at a later date. But anyway, realignment, refocus on what God is trying to do in terms of revelation. He could not give it to you at a baby-like consciousness because you were conditioned and you would not know what to do with it. And if God was to give you your life path inheritance or your birthright inheritance, you would squander it, and then you would share it with people who themselves need to learn lessons in this lifetime because of your generosity or because of your people pleasing ways, just due to your conditioning. So he will allow you to go through that. He's not doing it. God does not tempt you. God does not break people. He does not put suffering on you, but he will allow it depending on what you were portaled here for, to refine you. It is a spiritual initiation of some sort. It is a refining process where you go through a soul's purification, and it is very uncomfortable because the human being, the physical part of the woman is she is having to overcome her matter, right? There's a such thing called mind over matter. He has to allow you to feel uncomfortable and feel inconvenience in your physical so that you can trust and rely on him as source, especially where he's going to prepare to take you. Because in order for you to be elevated on a level in this life, especially for the curse breaking woman, you have to have all of that emotional immaturity exercise out of you, that victimhood mentality exercise out of you, the fear and the weakness that comes along with this path. It has to be exercised out of you, and a need to be liked. You cannot be powerful and long to be liked. There's no way two things as a powerful woman can exist at the same time. There's no way. Because much of your authority, you will be hated by men and women alike. Keep in mind, it's not a physical avatar here. These are spirits in the people. These are energies in the people. These are frequencies. These are mindsets. These are conditions in the people. But because you are such a rare being who has been portaled here to balance out the scales of life and to maintain life's harmony here, a lot of what God will allow you to do is to be disliked beyond imagination, which is why the gift of the smear campaign, the slander, and the propaganda against your identity is so important, because it literally works to strip you of all of that weakness, all of it. He allows you to feel every lie. He allows you to see it in the spirit. He will reveal what is being said to you in this, what's being said about you in the spirit. He will allow you to see the passive aggressive movements of others that you've known your whole life. He will allow you to feel and see the betrayal. He will warn you before many of the plots and schemes even come, because he wants to exercise that emotional impulsive nature out of you. You cannot be a leader and be an impactful and powerful woman and move off impulse. There's no way that you can be impactful and every time somebody says something that's not true, you out here, you got me messed up. No, defending yourself. Your energy, your presence, your demonstration will silence all of the chitter chatter of the weak, of the common man and woman who's speaking against your nature, your identity, and who you are. Once you get to that version, yes, the initiation is extremely brutal. That's why many people want the results but don't want to do the work. That's why many people want your favor, but they don't want the trials and tribulations that come along with it. Many people want the chart-topping song, but they don't want the process of creating the blues. Our entire lives, especially that first quarter, sometimes the first 2 quarters of our life, brutal. But it's an honorable path as a powerful, impactful woman. It is very lonely too, which is why self-love is so important and extremely high standards are important. And once you get introduced to the higher version of yourself, as a woman of prestige, as a woman who is a leader, as a woman who's extremely powerful, you'll realize that most people won't even meet your standards, not because of what you look like or what you have, but because of your soul's ranking and your interest in the way that you live your life. You don't live like the average person. This is if you are now in your life's purpose. People would run from you just based on your discipline alone, or the fact that you don't do much of what the common man and woman does in everyday life. Most of your life is not even pleasure. It's work. To them, it's work. To you, it's discipline. To you, it's honor. To you, it's sacrifice. And after a while, you'll be happy, right? To sacrifice your comfort for a greater purpose. Because once God reveals to you the higher knowings of this life, you're just happy to be in alignment with the universal laws of life. And much of that is no longer doing. You get to put down a lot of bags that these people carry. You get to put down a lot of the desires. If you go look at the scriptures alone, tell you that your desires of your heart will become that of God, right? He'll give you the desires of your heart, but it won't even be like what other people, their insatiable appetite is for life. It'll be divine things, okay? Anything that is involving order, anything that is involving rest, peace, ease, flow, allowing, you become very detached, but as well as appreciative for the life. You can live in it, but not feeling like a slave to it. And that's much of the fruits of the spirit. And I find that once you meet this in like this massive principality that we call a warlock, that is even much more powerful, dark power, okay, than that of a narcissist, because a warlock can be a narcissist, but a narcissist doesn't necessarily have to be a warlock. You can go back and rewind that and repeat that. When you meet a warlock, you meet a catalyst for your soul's mission. That catalyst comes to break, to destroy, and to damage you beyond repair. That is your initiation in the spirit, the warlock. And like I said, many of them very unassuming in the physical. They look like they're weak men. They wouldn't hurt a fly. They don't look like he'll hurt a fly. But he comes to break. He meets you at a seed level before you are allowed to have your soul be revealed to you, your real identity as a woman. And I am thankful for the warlock that have come on the path of every chosen generational curse breaking woman. Because unbeknownst to us, even though it was a curse from them, it was a blessing and a gift from God. That initiation was a determination for whether we were going to live the lives like our mothers, like our grandmothers, like our aunts, female cousins, female relatives. That was a determining factor. And as a matter of fact, thank you so much. As a matter of fact, when all of that stuff happened, isn't it funny and ironic that most of the people you were familiar with from your bloodline, they sided with the abuser against you? Or they did not interfere with the breaking of you. But it wasn't just you. It was like that for many of the women in your family. Abusers could run rampant. They could do whatever they wanted to do to the vulnerable women in your family without any interference. As a matter of fact, abusers, for many of women who come from these generational wounded families, traumatic families where there's so much trauma that runs rampant, the abuser has a safe place in these environments where the victim is always either on the run or has to adapt to the environment at their own expense. But you, somehow, you found the strength to walk away from everything that you once knew, not even knowing where you would go. You just welcomed the dark. You were thrusted into it and you walked into it and embraced it, not knowing that that darkness would lead you to a tunnel of light eventually. And this is what we call the spiritual wilderness of the awakening process for generational curse breaking women or generational curse breaking people in general. This is the path of the chosen. You get thrusted into darkness. And after a while, your vision, it adapts to that. You can see, right? Where your eyes or your vision has been suspended, your ears, you get a heightened sense of ability to hear. You get a heightened sense of ability to feel. If you know anyone that is blind, you can see that with them. I like to use Helen Keller all the time because she actually couldn't see or hear. But she stated that after all of her training, that life was like a tangible kaleidoscope. How would she know if she can't see or hear? She could feel. It was her senses that allowed her, through it being heightened, to experience life where her eyes and her ears had failed her. She could still enjoy the experience of this lifetime at her fingertips. For you, the gifted and most powerful woman of your bloodline, you were the same. God allowed the darkness to strip you of your vision, to heighten your gifts and your sensitivity in the spirit so that you could know without a person saying anything. You could hear without a person uttering a single word. You could sense without them even moving their body. That was his gift to you. He used that to train you where people had written you off and decided in their mind that what was once beautiful, that they had broken it, and yet you will never be able to not only see yourself again, but you would never be able to operate and function as a normal person. But God is so unpredictable. The source is so unpredictable. The creator, the life giver, the life sustainer of all, the all in all, as the ancients say, the supreme all in all, is so unpredictable and mysterious. It has a way of operating in the element of surprise and defying the odds of life. It is the great mathematician. It will even the odds, even against what we can understand and perceive. So what they thought was never what it was. And while you were written off, so to speak, God was rewriting a new narrative for your lifetime here on this earth. And as he was stripping that old conditioned program self of you, ma'am, he was rebuilding. And he was going to introduce you to the woman that you were always designed to be. Because now your soul has matured enough that he can trust you with the gift. On this path of acceptance and understanding, once God introduced you to that higher version of yourself, many of you guys could attest, regardless of whether you knew what this was or not, you were like, oh my God, who am I? Right? Especially when you were going through that smear campaign initiation process, right? Where God was exercising the people pleasing and the emotional weakness out of you. You were like, why so many, God? Because it wasn't so many people. It was so much energy at once. Darkness, resistance to your progress, being hit in every area of your life, right? Every area under attack. And you're trying to get an understanding. Why me? As sweet as I am, as compromising as I am, as non-threatening as I am, as kind and as positive as I am, why me? Well, you did not know that underneath all of that conditioning, you are a very powerful, very authoritative woman. And people feared what they could not see. People sensed that there was something more to you. And that if you were allowed to be able to move through life naturally without any interruption, without somebody trying to disturb your life, you would get there and that you would do either something to them or you will withhold something from them. There's a thing people say, everybody can't go. So once you make a little progress beyond what people had known you for, that little inch of progress was a preview of what you could become. And so that's why you had so many men and women alike, knowing that lies were not true, but because of envy, covetousness, and jealousy, they wanted to get in your head with lies so that you could go mad in the chaos that they had created, so that you could just get entrapped inside of that matrix. But you did them one better. You said, no, you can have it. You can have it. Oh, you want it? Oh, you can have it. Right? Because powerful, impactful women receive attention without trying. We show up and the whole entire atmosphere shifts. People, we can have on sweatpants, hair pulled back, some glasses, sneakers on, and we walk into the room and people are like, who is that? Now, don't let you put intention to the presentation. Every man, every woman, every child, like, who is that? Regardless of your tax bracket and regardless of your environment. Regardless, if you short, if you tall, if you big, if you small, doesn't matter. Light, if you're dark, don't matter. Because of the essence and the embodiment of that spirit, it is a powerful one. And I will be honest with you, this is not nothing fluffy. This is not me just telling you feel good words. Women like you need to be heavily protected.